The year is 1999. The growth of the privatized Zambian economy was now marked by the construction of Zambia's first shopping mall, the Manda shopping complex, opened by His Excellency President Frederick Titus Jacob Chiluba on October 28th of that year. The shopping complex was an evident landmark for the movement for multi-party democracy government, the MMD. Manda was a sign of what was to come into the new millennium of the 2000s. The Zambian population will now have a wide range of goods and services to choose from, a wide variety and the availability of commodities in shops across the nation. After the liberalization of the Zambian economy, which was a heavily socialist economy under Dr. Kenneth Kaunda and the UNIP government, where industries were run by the state, and in the 1980s, people had to line up in long queues to buy essential goods.
You could hardly find soft drinks like, Coca-Colas and all these things.
Some time back, if you go back, you have seen that we are queuing of meal, sugar. Go to straight and find what is happening now today.
But the privatization of the market was also a sign of what many Zambians feared in 1999, that Zambia as a country was becoming what they called a trading nation, a fear that Zambian citizens would become merely consumers of foreign products. But President Chiluba would say that there's nothing wrong with Zambia becoming a trading nation, as long as this is only used as a stepping stone towards industrialization. He said, even the fastest growing economies such as Japan, Taiwan, South Korea and Singapore belong to the group of trading nations. But the difference was very evident that these countries were major exporters of finished goods to the outside world, which Zambia wasn't. As some of the citizens will see the influx of foreign trading outlets in the country as an expansion of South African retail monopoly, and the dominance of South African products on the Zambian market, witnessed by the rapid growth of ShopRite, which became the most reliable supermarket around the country. So President Chiluba would urge the retailers at the new Manda shopping complex to ensure they buy produce from Zambian farmers and the textile fabric from local Zambian manufacturers. With the lack of locally produced commodities, Zambians will now consume a large majority of produce that they did not produce and becoming heavily reliant on foreign imports. With an increase of the buying of luxury items to the purchases of day-to-day needs, the Zambian population will now venture in the state of consumerism. And it's very hard to grow the Zambian economy without Zambians going into the manufacturing of goods and services. And by looking at the Zambian retail market, let's talk about capital and consumerism. I think we can mostly agree that today's global trade revolves around the principles of a capitalist. But as Zambians, we shouldn't be naive to the reality that the nature of capitalism is that if you do not have capital, you yourself will be capitalized on. And with the lack of investment capital in Zambian households and the lack of surplus income for individual Zambians to the rise of the unemployment levels in the country, this has led to the exploitation of their labor, exploitation of land and resources, to the exploitation of a people. So, even when we look at capital in the retail sector, the prominent businessmen and women of Zambia, from the entrepreneurs to the Zambian capitalists, could not dominate an industry in large numbers in sectors where foreign investors had way more money to invest in a business more than the average Zambian wealth class. With the rise of ShopRite, game stores and later on Spar and Pick and Pay, with no Zambian retailers competing at that level, the retail sector was dominated by South African supermarkets. This created a dependency on foreign companies for employment and survival for many Zambians, as the foreign entities now determined a large portion of the Zambian economy because they controlled a major supply of goods and services. And liberalization of the economy also encouraged other Zambians to go into manufacturing and the production of Zambian commodities. But the question that haunted a lot of Zambian citizens, and I believe it still haunts them now, is when they walk into their local supermarkets, how many Zambian products do they see on the shelves? From chocolates, tea, sugar, coffee, lotion, soaps, clothes, shower gel, baby powder, yogurts, biscuits, cornflakes, bags, pillows, drinks, toys, water, washing powder, and so on and so forth. What is the percentage in relation to what we produce of what we consume? But all these economic philosophies aside, the reality was that many people in 1999 were truly excited to see such development because the coming of the shopping malls would beautify the city. This was a clear sign sign of progress as the residents of Lusaka came in the masses to see the official opening of the 23 million kwacha Manda Hill shopping center, built on the old tribal gravesite of the Soli people, where the shopping complex would get its name as Manda, meaning grave in the local language of Unyanja. Manda Hill became one of Lusaka's main attractions, a social meeting place and a prominent retail business center, as game stores would go on to sell over 2.5 billion kwacha worth of goods in its first 5 days, not accounting for inflation and the re-evaluation of the kwacha. President Chiluba would say that the shopping complex should be seen as a challenge rather than a threat to the local businessmen and women. Which is true. Every Zambian retailer should aim for the likes of ShopRite for their outlets to be opened in other countries. And the issue in why we have very few numbers of local Zambian supermarkets might have little to do with what they say as the lack of ambition or hard work for individual Zambians. I believe that the one major factor in why is just how hard it is to raise capital in a country where most people live paycheck to paycheck, with a very high cost of living. On the other hand, the shopping centers have beautified and modernized the cities, and in how clean the towns have become, and today Lusaka is known as the city of many malls. But do you think that there's too much dominance of foreign retailers in Zambia?
ine kuyangana kudabwa vena wana kabodi monga boto